Hello and welcome, my name is a.k.a, but you can call me Retro, and this is everything I've ever learned in my life. I was born in Europe, that's the thing on the right, and if we look closer, I was born in Eastern Europe, right next to pizza and beer. This is how that looks like. Here is my house, and this is me playing video games on a computer in the early 90s. Now remember, this is in a time and place where games are considered for kids. No adults play video games, no adults were making video games in my country. Actually, the whole purpose of my childhood was to grow out of playing video games and become an adult and do serious things. But I loved playing games, I loved making them, and I wouldn't let anybody stop me. So I made a shit ton of games, and because parents don't really know what they're talking about. They know for a world 30 years ago, and as I figured out, it had little to do with how I wanted to live my own life. But here is my own disclaimer. As a kid, I felt what people say is kind of an absolute truth. That's just the way the world works. But as you grow older, you realize that no, what they're saying is only what's true to them. They're describing their little box that they live in. And just like right now, I'm explaining to you what my box looks like. And other people can only show you what kind of boxes are out there, and then it's up to you to choose which parts are right for you. And that's how you build your own box. And now you have a box, and the great part is that you can change it. You can add new stuff in, you can take stuff out. I like to change it every 2 years, but according to my ex-girlfriends, you would probably say that I do it every 4 years or 2 months. Here I am with long hair, here I am with short hair, and mind you, I'm 18 years old, legal to drink, drive, and do other things. Here I have long hair again. Here I'm trying earrings, piercing, black nails, dyed hair, punk hair, no hair, beards. Not sure what was going on here. We're gonna just please through this. This one's cool. A little bit of Movember going on, and yeah, that's what happens when you live with undergrads. You gotta stay in touch with the kids. And when I was 25 years old, I joined acrobatics for adults. And that's basically a trick for making old people do gymnastics. Because usually kids start at like age 5, and women would peak at 16 years old, guys would peak at 22 years old. And so here I am, 29 years old, when I decided, I'm going to seriously start practicing gymnastics. Because I wanted to prove to myself that I'm not too old for this. And so I practiced almost every day for about 2 to 4 hours a day. In my life, I've tried to do so many different things that when people say things to you like, I can't draw and I'm not good at sports, they say it like there's some sort of thing that's given to you at birth. But, have you ever seen babies? Babies can't draw, they can't do gymnastics, they can hardly walk, although this one might be a breakdancer. But if everyone starts with no talent, then you realize it's just acquired skill. Talent is the result of learning. And with practice, you can improve very fast. And that's true for beginners. For when you are more advanced, as you follow people in the art world, you see this over and over and over again. And so at one point, you just stop giving a shit about talent and you become free to learn anything you want. So when I went through the education system, it gave me this kind of view of the world that first you're going to spend all this time getting all the knowledge, which is supposed to prepare you for the future, as the parents would like to say. But I think learning should be the consequence of motivation. So if you want to do something, you learn it and then you do it. And this is not on a lifetime scale. This happens on a day-to-day basis. If I'm going to be coding something, I will Google every 20 minutes how to do it. And you should be doing this with everything for the rest of your life. And it doesn't have to be something practical that you're learning. I remember after I graduated from computer science, it was New Year's Eve, and I drew this sketch, and it felt really good. So I'm 27 years old, and I decided I'm going to learn how to draw again. And I'm going to do that by practicing to draw a portrait every week. And I admit I was a little bit conflicted because what am I gonna do with this? Like, I didn't want to earn a living with drawing portraits, but I did it anyway. So here's portrait number 3, here's the 7th, and here's number 9. Here's 14, and soon after I would stop counting, and then I just did it for fun whenever I felt like it. I also decided I'm gonna learn how to paint, and this is the kind of stuff that I do. I still like to do portraits, so I did a couple of those, and the big part of what I do right now is pixel art, and this is how that looks like. And here is the latest one that I did. Something like this takes you 200 hours. But I love doing it. I love drawing, and I always kind of regretted I didn't go to art school. Because if you rewind back to 18 years ago, when I was deciding where to go to college, I wanted to make video games, but all the video games happened in the US, so I wanted to go study to the US because I love the US. I grew up watching Seven Heaven. I definitely had a crush on the middle sister there, or Samantha from Sex and the City, or Lorelai Gilmore, and I love everything about US college life, and also I love this guy, motherfucker. So I applied to Art Institute of San Francisco, and what's different from our ex-communist free education system in the US is that you have to pay for tuition. So I applied for a scholarship, and I actually won $10,000, only for my dreams to be crushed by the tuition that was 6 times as much. Alright, so I guess I stayed at home, got a non-art science degree, and I drew and made video games in my free time. And 10 years later, a friend from undergrad who was studying for a PhD in the US emails me and asks me if I want to come there. It turns out that in San Francisco, they actually like people who can do everything. Apparently, they call them unicorns, and I got to US. It was awesome, great. It was pretty okay. It wasn't bad. At least I was getting paid. I wasn't completely miserable. I was just feeling a little bit down. I was kind of depressed, and I hated my life. So when I turned 30, I realized I'm just making web pages for a living. And there's 2 ways you can be in the US. One is you can have a job, or the other one is you go to school. And since the first option kind of sucked, I decided I will apply to a college. And fine arts was the obvious choice, but it wasn't as obvious to the admission people because they rejected me over and over again. But remember, this part is called never give up. So when I applied to Stanford, I also wanted to apply to fine arts, but I found out that they accept only like 5 people a year. So I kind of knew how that's going to turn out. And since I just wanted to draw art for learning video games, I decided I'm going to apply to education instead. And that also didn't go that well, except they would at least consider me for a master's program. And I guess you know how the rest turned out, which brings me to my next point. In elementary school, I got straight A's, and then in high school, my grades kind of averaged to an A, and by the end of college, you could make a whole alphabet out of my transcript. So whoever accepted me either didn't look at my grades or they didn't care either, which was great because I got accepted and I got a $10,000 fellowship, only to be crushed down by the tuition that was more than 4 times as much. Yeah. Except right now it's 10 years later and I actually have a choice. It was a hard choice, but I remembered a question that always helps me in these kind of situations, and that is, what would I do if there was no money? Would I do web pages, or would I go study education and make video games about learning? So as soon as I asked that, in a split second, I knew exactly what I needed to do. And then as soon as I knew what I needed to do, I did everything I could to get it. I saved the money over the summer. I got lucky and got an assistantship position that would pay for half of my tuition. And it got even better because my backup plan was to create a Kickstarter game for the master's project that I'm going to be developing. And that turned out pretty well. So now I will be actually able to work full-time on my game after I graduate, which was kind of my dream forever. And the big thing to remember here is that if I cared about money, I would be still making web pages and be miserable. And instead, here I am today.